Now let's start module number 2. And in this module, we are going to explore the initial measurement of the intangible assets. In this module, we are going to explore how to measure the cost of an intangible asset. The cost of an intangible asset depends on how it is acquired. The intangible assets can be acquired separately or can be acquired in a business combination, such as acquisition of a subsidiary. So you are going to purchase the complete entity or the company with all of these assets, including PPE, inventory, intangible assets. So intangible assets in this case have been acquired in a group of assets, such as a business combination, as I said. And also the intangible assets can be acquired by a way of government grants. The government here is giving us the intangible asset as a grant we didn't pay anything for. Or even the intangible assets finally can be internally generated. So we are going to discuss these cases and situations where the intangible assets can be generated internally. The cost of an intangible asset acquired separately is simply the purchase price plus all directly attributable costs, such as, for example, cost of registration, these intangible assets in a government authorities and entities. So, for example, if we are talking about patent, so the cost of this patent is not only the purchase price of the patent that we paid to the seller, but the cost also will include the registration cost of this patent in the government authorities in our country in order to allow us to use it and make it under our name. So in this case, this cost will be considered as a directly attributable cost that must be included within the cost of the intangible asset. And if the intangible assets being acquired as part of a business combination, so in this case, as per IFRS number 3 and 10, we have to consider these intangible assets based on the fair value at the acquisition date. So we are going to acquire these intangible assets and all other assets in this acquisition transaction based on the fair value on the transaction date. And if the intangible assets being acquired through a government grant that we receive from the government, for example, or any public entity, so in this case, we have to consider the value of the intangible assets based on the fair value or even a nominal amount if we are unable to determine the fair value of that asset. And finally, if we develop this asset internally, so the cost of an internally generated intangible asset is the sum of all the expenditures that we incur from the date when the asset first meets the recognition criteria up to the date that this asset is being completed and is available and ready for use. So all costs that we spend on the development of this asset must be capitalized. And we are going to consider these type of internal generated assets in more details in the next modules. So to sum up what we discussed here in this module, the different ways that we can acquire an intangible asset, and under each way, we discussed how to measure the value of that asset at the time of the initial recognition.